So we are here once again talking about Spring Bonnie and William Afton, which I guess leads me into the fact that I got to apologize for this video because, well, even though we're talking about Spring Bonnie and William Afton in this, and this is going to be their definitive lore video for the franchise, in addition to everything else for FNAF for Dummies, well, we have an interesting dilemma here, and that's because Spring Bonnie and William Afton need to be brought up, much like with the 5 missing kids, in every part of the series. And once again, because I mentioned the 5 missing kids, YouTube is not going to let this video be seen by a majority of people, but whatever, it's the lore we're going over. I literally have blood-stained animatronics in the background for footage for this, so yeah, YouTube, I don't know what to tell you. Welcome to the somewhat definitive lore of William Afton. Hope you're ready for this wild ride. On a crazy train. Man, that was cringe. But overall, the story of William Afton starts in a very debatable period. Almost fucked up my speech there. But William Afton's story starts somewhere between the 1930s and, say, the 1950s. Because realistically, he has to be born first for him to have his kids and yada yada yada. So, William Afton is debatably the oldest character in the series, I would argue. Unless you want to argue Fredbear is older because Fredbear is a concept potentially borrowed from something else. But what that something else is very highly debated. There are several theories on where William Afton got the idea for Fredbear during the 30s, 40s, 50s, sometime during that span. A lot of people go with Matt Pat's theory of, oh, it must have been a traveling circus show because these posters. But overall, I really don't know if that's ever been confirmed. I'll be honest. Especially when you consider the fact that some things that the circus show claimed the bear could do was literally impossible for a bear to do. I understand nowadays we have shows for animals where we show them doing things they can't do, and it's all human manipulation and electronics in the background making the noises and stuff like that. But overall, you're really pushing my believability that someone in the 1930s, 40s-ish would have came up with all these fancy routines to trick the public into thinking a real bear was doing half the things the bear was doing. So while overall I do credit Matt Pat for actually putting the theory together because it is a solid theory, because overall we have nothing else to go off of for that. But where William Afton actually got the idea for Fredbear, completely debatable. Completely debatable to this day. And obviously at some point he would meet his wife and kids, but the important part of that whole thing is he figured out Fredbear, man. He figured out Fredbear. And that's where we also come into the next part of, was Fredbear a hand-stitched costume? Was Bonnie a hand-stitched costume? And that's also where the problem is, the only real evidence we have is a Matt Pat theory. Because again, while Matt Pat is really solid at putting together these theories, and I thoroughly believe he actually figured out a good majority of the timeline, well, we need confirmation. We need confirmation. And unfortunately, all we have for confirmation for any of that is Glitchtrap. So, whether or not William Afton was playing, Fredbear in costume form, I don't know. We don't know. If you want to believe in the Matt Pat theory, that's fine. If you don't want to believe in the Matt Pat theory, that's also fine. Really, it doesn't affect the lore. Reality is, somehow, he managed to get this restaurant to be successful. He met Henry Emily, and then, well, we all know where this goes. And sorry that we're going to be bringing up Matt Pat in a lot of this, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, again, he really is genuinely a genius when it comes to the lore behind this. The problem is people have fashioned so many of their own theories based off Matt Pat theories, and then those theories have become normal in the community that when I inevitably address them, guess who we're going to have to directly talk about? Yeah. Hopefully, I won't have to, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do. But the meeting of Henry Emily is really where things kick off, because at any point in time, honestly, if stuff ended here, we wouldn't have a series. But meeting Henry Emily is what makes everything possible. Why do I say that? A lot of people are probably like, well, you need William Afton, obviously, to start the whole timeline. No. Because the reality is, well, anybody could come up with the idea for people in costumes, basically. I know we have no confirmation of that, but hey, anybody can come up with the idea of an animal-themed restaurant. Okay? Let's be clear here. Anyone can come up with that. But to have the engineering capability to make robots and animatronics, especially during the early 60s and 70s, somewhere during this time period, again, it's all ambiguous, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Like, meeting Henry Emily is what will make events later completely possible. And I guess this is where I also gotta mention, here's the lore video for Henry Emily 2, because if I, make a separate video for Henry Emily, there'll be no point in all this. But regardless, Henry Emily liked the idea of the restaurant so much, he took things a step further. He said, Afton, you know those mascots? Let's make them real. And then this is where we get the animatronics / Springlock suits. And then this is where things are gonna get messed up, screwed up. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. Things are inevitably gonna get screwed up for the whole lot of us in this one. And the making of these suits would go normal for the longest time. Not really much of anything would happen. We have some rumors of Springlock failures, but only rumors, so nothing confirmed. And overall, that's probably a good thing, because if I hear any more about Springlock failures and any more holes in the whole how did the Springlock accident happen, I don't need any more theories of people getting stuffed into Springlock suits or willingly putting on Springlock suits and getting impaled by Springlock suits. I know we love it with William Afton, but it's disgusting, and I really don't want to witness that for the rest of my life with this series. Thank you very much. But obviously, things would go awry one day, because we all know about the lovely Bite of 83. This is the thing that has driven the series for the longest time, and I do mean the longest time. The Bite of 83 is kind of horrible. What do I mean kinda? It's really horrible. And so you remember Afton's wife and kids? Well, the wife makes the kids, and well, the kids got into some fucked up shit. The Bite of 83 was all the result of basically a bullying incident. Michael Afton, the eldest son of William Afton, would take Crying Child, and we call him Crying Child because a lot of people debate if his name is Evan or Norman. I don't know why people have a debate on what his name is. If anybody can answer that, put it in the comments below. I just know people flop between calling him Evan or Norman, even though I believe his name is Evan, but I'm just going to stick with calling him Crying Child or Cece. Well, he would take Crying Child, and there's a reason why he's called Crying Child. He was horribly afraid of the animatronics. He didn't like the Springlock suits. He didn't like how any of them looked. He thought they were very much uncanny valley, so to speak, which they are. And overall, things would get pretty bizarre on his end. He would frequently, and this is where I have to put in air quotes here, air quotes everybody, because you can put Michael or Crying Child in this when I say this, because people debate on if it's Michael Afton suffering from the nightmares in FNAF 4, and some people debate if it's Crying Child or a combination of both. But overall, they would suffer nightmares of the animatronics for probably weeks on end. In terms of gameplay, we only suffer it for a week, but it wouldn't surprise me if an actual lore extended anyway. Again, we only try to cover core lore here. That this probably went on for weeks, or maybe months, maybe a year. Years? Who knows? You see, the reality is we heavily debate how old Crying Child was, and we heavily debate how old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, or in this case Fredbear's Family Diner, was around before Crying Child was born, or if it was around for as long as he was alive. So we really don't know when his fear of the animatronics started, and we really don't know when the nightmare animatronics started to come alive, basically. It's a really unfortunate thing where we don't have an entry for it, really, without going into extended lore. That kind of muddles the whole series. And again, extended lore is cool and all, but I want to try and keep this basic for everybody. So, yeah. As an end result of being afraid of the animatronics, the fear, the paranoia, Michael started hating the animatronics. Crying Child was afraid of them. And then there's another person in all this we're going to leave out for now. Michael would have enough of it, and so would Crying Child. Crying Child in a much more unfortunate way. Michael took his anger out on all of this on Crying Child. Basically told Fredbear to go royally screw himself and shoved Crying Child's head into the mouth of Fredbear. And this is where we gotta debate if it was a spring lock accident or an animatronic suit accident. People debate it was an animatronic stuck on performance mode, and some people debate that was a spring lock failure, and the gears were slipping, and everything was going awry in that regard. But no matter which side of that debate you're on, even though I flop between both sides, the reality is that Crying Child would meet his end. Kind of. You see, for a little while after Fredbear's mouth would fail and crush his head, well, obviously William Afton would see this, and this would start a whole world of suffering for Michael Afton, but we'll get into that later. Crying Child would be taken to hospital. It's believed by the community anyway, and I will go off of the community this time because we have nothing else better to point to, that he was in a coma for maybe around a week. And that's why we believe that possibly Crying Child was the one in FNAF 4. And then we have the other reason believing that Michael was getting punished so severely because of the bite of 83, both mentally and physically, by his father, that for a full week he was basically hallucinating the animatronics. But that's a different story. And honestly, we don't even have a confirmation of that. Again, you can really put Crying Child or Michael in the point of FNAF 4 and it still makes sense. It happened. And William Afton, as Crying Child was passing away, would probably make the worst promise of his life. And that promise was, I would put you back together again. And by putting him back together, well, this is where we get into both FNAF 5 and the early events of FNAF 2, and then the extended events of FNAF 1. I know that's a hell of a way to break it down for you all, but that's basically what happens here. William Afton will begin to open up Circus Baby's Pizza. And as a result of opening up Circus Baby's Pizza as a side hustle to Fredbear's Family Diner while it was closed, he wanted to figure out how to put his son back together again. And so he started making animatronics that basically mimicked humans, literally. Although this would still be Fredbear, we would have Circus Baby, obviously, Ballora, Funtime Foxy. Well, they were even more uncanny than the last batch. And it's obvious what William Afton was trying to get at. He wanted his family back, because Michael doing what he did to Crying Child resulted in basically his whole family being destroyed, because his wife would leave him, Michael would basically be in jail to my understanding, and, well, his daughter got taken away. Mostly. That's right, we haven't mentioned Elizabeth yet, and for good reason. This is when she technically gets introduced into the series. We don't know for sure which one happened first, but it was a combination of both. We believe, however, one definitely could have happened much later for one key reason, but I don't really want to bring it up because it's kind of moot to this whole thing and I need to bring it up anyway. William Afton would either witness Circus Baby kidnapping Elizabeth, or, well, he witnessed his son inside of Fredbear. We don't know which one caused which. We believe strongly, however, that he witnessed his son inside Fredbear first because, well, the Funtime animatronics are designed to kidnap children. Very clearly so. And, well, what would be the point in having robots designed to kidnap children if you didn't have an idea of what to do with said children? You get what I'm saying? So, even though we have no confirmation, it is believed that Afton witnessed his son's soul inside Fredbear, the animatronic that killed him, and he then designed Circus Baby and the other animatronics to kidnap people. Mostly children. Now again, we don't know that for sure. There's no solid confirmation, but we strongly have a belief that that's what happened as a community, and that's horrifying. Because, well, Elizabeth gets kidnapped. And after Elizabeth gets kidnapped, this is what literally basically ensures that the death nail is put in and that the rest of the series is going to happen no matter what. Because again, this is unfortunately a thing of if Afton just stopped, it would have been fine. Had the story just stopped, it would have mostly been fine. But it won't be for a lot of people. Because once Afton witnesses the fact that souls can work in animatronics, man. And this is where I have to mention the fact we are now in FNAF 2 in the timeline. And well, oh boy, oh buddy, how? During all these events, Henry Emily was still in the picture. And, well, he obviously still had a living to make. So he reluctantly opened up another location, but this time called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And this is where we get the toy animatronics. And I apologize because this is going to throw the whole mood off, but I gotta do the meme here, folks. Save the children! And that's where we get the toy animatronics. And they would be designed specifically to, well, save the children. And William Afton didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. Obviously because, well, he lost his own kids to animatronics. Not once, but twice. Second time being his own fault, however. And, well, he would start some things. And this is where I have to mention the fact we are now in FNAF 2 in the timeline. And, well, oh boy, oh buddy, how? During all these events, Henry Emily was still in the picture. And, well, he obviously still had a living to make. So he reluctantly opened up another location, but this time called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And this is where we get the toy animatronics. And I apologize because this is going to throw the whole mood off, but I gotta do the meme here, folks. Save the children! And that's where we get the toy animatronics. And they would be designed specifically to, well, save the children. And William Afton didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. Obviously because, well, he lost his own kids to animatronics. Not once, but twice. Second time being his own fault, however. And, well, he would start some things. These guys like props, right? I hope you like props. Well, this is when we have to talk about the unfortunate part of Henry Emily had a daughter. and the little daughter unfortunately loved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And as a result, when William Afton came back one day in a drunken rage from losing his own daughter, poor old Charlotte Emily would get the axe. Or, in my case, the halberd. She would be dragged, and yeah, I'm not going to hold that thing for the rest of the video. She would be dragged to the back alley, and well, so to speak. Yeah, we'll go with that. And as a result, the puppet would come trying to, as part of the whole toy animatronic line, trying to save the children. It would fail in the rain next to Charlotte, and Charlotte's soul would be in the puppet. And this is what starts the man behind the slaughter truly. The death of Charlotte Emily is what literally throws everything into full circle. Because now we have gone from somebody who has lost people, someone who attempted to take people and failed and got the wrong person, to someone who has successfully taken the right person. We have watched the full transformation of man into monster. And there's no stopping the man behind the slaughter. Because, well, he always comes back. And as a result of his always coming back, he would don an older suit, Spring Bonnie, and you know what happens next. Not that yet. We're getting there. But he would go on to take the lives of 5 more. And then some. The true number of people he took is debatable, but we mostly agree there definitely was 5 missing kids. Those much we can agree on, although there definitely needs to be more than 5, but we aren't going into that whole fiasco again. Donning the yellow Spring Bonnie suit, he would go on a slaughter, and then he would stuff the bodies into the animatronics for further study. From what we can gather from the lore as a whole anyway. Again, it would help if lovely old Scott could drop a confirmation or two. But regardless, bodies were put into animatronic suits. Animatronic suits went whir. Toy suits go whir. And then we had Mangle killing off Jeremy Fitzgerald in the bite of 87. I told you. You didn't know we were in 1987. You thought we were probably in the 1984 or something? No. Welcome to the bite of 87. Everything I spelled out was over the course of that many years. 83 to 87. Yeah, now you know what we mean by this lore can get a little bit wonky and very extensive, and we have to make a lot of assumptions. The fact we have a whole 83 to 87 speaks enough for that. Really does. And then, this is where we have to jump forward a little bit, because Spring Bonnie would get hauled away, put into storage, so Afton could never use Spring Bonnie again, because again, this is a suit that would always remain on site. And, well, honestly, Afton was also trying to pin it on other employees, so that's why he also just left it there anyway. It's not that he didn't want people to come looking for him, he was also trying to pin the blame on somebody else. Literally anybody else at that point. Because, well, you would probably get caught faster if the suit was in your house. But regardless, investigations would ensue. They would find nothing. There were slight assumptions it was Afton, but nobody in terms of the police force or the judicial system could really do anything. And then this is where we get into the events of FNAF 1, where the haunted suits are now stalking the hallways, and you're a night guard, and you have to fight against them for 5 nights. 5 nights at Freddy's. And this is where we finally are at the technical start point of everything. Ain't that amazing? We're at the starting point for the games, but we're so deep into the lore already. Ain't that wonderful? And this is where we have to talk about the unfortunate thing of we would only find out the lore I'm talking about in FNAF 3. But this section of the lore happened during FNAF 1. That's a very important thing to note, because there's a noticeable time gap between FNAF 1 and FNAF 3 in terms of the lore timeline. In fact, it's believed you're in the late 90s to early 2000s during the events of FNAF 3. So, there's quite a time gap. But we wouldn't learn about these events of FNAF 1 until FNAF 3, where William Afton came to the FNAF 1 location for the first time in his life, dismantled the suits for something we're not going to talk about because it's really not vital, but just know he would dismantle the suits for something. But that something would result in the animatronic souls, the dead children, being free. And then when he came back for more of what he needed, we'll let that be ambiguous because it doesn't matter right now and it will overcomplicate the shit out of this video. He would become locked inside. He would finally become Springtrap. And this is when he truly becomes the man behind the slaughter. It's scary how, for a character, there are so many starts to what he truly is. For most characters, it's a continuous line, but for William Afton, you can establish for each part of the lore up until this point, it's for a reason, and he did this for a reason. Like, each segment was a start of this new personality coming into place, the start of a new person you see in front of you at that immediate moment. And once William Afton is locked inside, it's completed. We finally have our monster, we finally have our villain, we finally have Springtrap. And during FNAF 3, obviously, he would terrorize you once again. But this is where I have to reveal something. During this whole time, well, for FNAF 2 anyway, it was only for 2 nights. But you, during this whole time, were looking for William Afton. That's right. FNAF 5, you were looking for him. FNAF 2, 1, now 3, you were looking for him. You wanna know why? Because you, this whole time, were playing as Michael Afton. That's right. He came back. He got out of jail at some point, and he came back for one purpose: to put a stop to his father, William Afton. And during FNAF 3, Michael Afton would burn the building to the ground in an attempt to take his father's life for the final time. But unfortunately, he always comes back. And this is where we would get into Pizzeria Simulator, the next game. And we would discover that fire was actually the key, but we didn't do it right. You see, fire kills off certain something that binds souls to the suits. Again, we don't want to go off the deep end, but just know there's a substance in there that binds souls in the suits. And certain temperatures kill off that substance. And during Pizzeria Simulator, you trick the burnt remnants of Afton to wander through, and you finish the job. You kill him off. And you actually do technically kill him off, because after this point, we have to get into Glitch Trap. And it's also important to note at this point too, however, Michael Afton and Henry Emily have both passed in the fire as well, because they took their lives, not wanting the story of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to be known. But Afton always comes back somehow. And although the physical body was destroyed, and although there wasn't much left, there was something left. They recovered his brain, his circuit boards, all the various parts of the suit that was still there. They ran it through a machine, and that's where we got Glitch Trap. Glitch Trap from this point would over time take over people's minds through the system. And well, he would eventually form a new body, the physical version of Glitchtrap, a new Springtrap, so to speak, using a combination of his burn-up corpse, the old Spring Bonnie suit, and, well, newer parts somewhat. The unfortunate thing is, however, this is where our lore ends. Because everything else up until this point is speculation, doesn't add anything of value, and overall, it's my video, so I decide where the lore ends. Just kidding. In all reality, this is seriously where all vital and core lore of the Afton family is needed to be mentioned, because everything else past this point is technically not even the Aftons anymore. It's just the corporation. And while I do love me a good old corrupt corpo story, we're here for the core lore, and we're here for the man behind the slaughter, and we're here for the 5 missing kids. We're here for Crying Child, we're here for Evan, we're here for Michael, we're here for good old Charlotte Emily. We're here for the characters that started it all, we're here for the core lore, and that's what I want to focus on. I hope you enjoyed this episode of FNAF for Dummies. If you did, you know what to do. If you didn't like it, well, you also know what to do. I've been Johnny Von Duke. I hope you enjoyed this lore video, and I will see you all next time.